Tell the audience how cool you are.
That's a strong exaggeration.
Music. Roll the music. All right. Welcome to the Dream Big podcast, where our goal in life is to find the biggest dreamers all over the world and interview them and tell you their story. Inspirational stories of how they became where they're at. And I could not be more excited about our special guest today, Joel Buhr. He corrected me to make sure that I said this right. B-U-H-R. So an amazing man, a 10X guy. We met through the 10X movement, through Grant Cardone. We met in a 10X in Miami. Yeah. And this guy went to Dubai last month to speak on behalf of 10X. This guy is inspiring people all over the 10X community, all over the world. An amazing entrepreneur, self-made, a lot of exciting things going on here. And I just want to say first and foremost, welcome to the show, baby.
Man, it's great to be here. It's an honor to be here. I really appreciate it.
It is great to have you. Yesterday, we spent some time, yesterday and Sunday, the last 2 days, we spent a little bit of time together. So spontaneous that yesterday I was like, hey, we could do a podcast tomorrow. And you're like, yeah, I'll hang out. And not only did that, but then my wife was talking about your wife coming out someday. And you were like, she could fly in tomorrow night too.
Yeah.
And sure enough, his wife was on a flight to come here today. So stay tuned for my wife's Influential Women podcast with your influential wife. But let's talk about, where this all started. Let's talk a little bit about you, Joel.
All the background, like where it started.
I want to know your story. First, these mics have been fun. We've been jacking with these mics, so just bear with us here. It's all the epic stuff here.
They got their own personality.
It's working though. So we've met a couple times at Grant Cardone's.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of you. Your energy. He's taller than me, and that's pretty rare. I don't find a lot of guys way taller than me, so I have to look up to him all the time. He's a big deal, but a lot of people look up to you as well. So let's go into that.
Well, as far as business goes, or just myself,
what's your history? Where'd you come from?
Where did I come from? I grew up in rural Nebraska. You could say Grand Island, Nebraska is
where
I started. Parents got divorced when I was young. That caused a lot of people have that same story where their parents get divorced. It impacts your life, certainly. So it kind of creates the direction later of like, what do you want to do different? What's the changes you want to make in your life different? Because I have 2 kids myself, and I want to set a different path, set a different set of opportunities up for my family that I never had growing up. So that's been constantly that small driver in the back.
Yeah.
Like who said I couldn't figure this out?
Love that.
Who defined? Who said that I was in a box?
Yeah.
And I think constantly, I think at times, once in a while, we lose those moments where we realize we can go outside the box.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And people just think that this is where they're at and this is where life is destined them to be and that's their purpose, and it's not. I think you define what your purpose is every time you decide it. So you're never locked into where your purpose is going to be. So, fast forward, I started... In the 90s, I was working for natural gas deregulation, and I was in my teens. I was flying back and forth to Chicago from Omaha. By that time, I'd moved up to Omaha, and was working for Occidental Petroleum. They had a division called MC Squared. We were selling natural gas in Chicago.
Nice.
And so how I got there was I was actually working for a telemarketing company, and was on the top sales of the program, and they were one of our clients, and they're like, we need people in the field because we don't have enough salespeople in the field. I'm like, I'll go.
I love it.
Let's roll.
That's funny. Some of my history was I started in telemarketing and sales too.
Yeah.
And I got recruited from telemarketing into Radio Shack, into selling cell phones, into mattresses, and then the rest is history. I'm a mattress guy now. Mattress man over here.
Well, and that's
it all started as sales.
Yeah, that's how it connected for me too. We were using this product at the time called Business USA from American Business Information. And a good friend of mine I worked with at the telemarketing company. Anyway, I came back from that series of months working in Chicago, and he's like, "Hey man, let's go over to American Business Information because they're in Omaha." He's like, "They pay better. We're gonna be on the phone anyway."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Sounds good. Why not? Let's go." Because I really liked the product. So that kind of like fast forwards, like how did I get to what I'm doing right now? I really liked the data product. When I was in the field, I was going door to door in like places like Chinatown and the southeast side of Chicago, places where I really stood out. And I got told that a few times by a few people. I walked in, they're like, "Man, you're in the wrong side of town." I'm like, "I know. Sign here." So, but we used this product, and it was this information that allowed me to fast track through the sale that I kind of like, man, this is really interesting to me. It's fascinated me.
Yeah.
And so I went over to American Business Information and quickly grew to, top 10% of the division. And I really enjoyed what I was doing. I was fascinated by this thing called data and what you could do with it. And, long story short, fast forward, worked at a brokerage company after that. And then in 2005, started my company, First Direct. And, at the time, it was like I told you, I think it was yesterday, whatever, at lunch. It's like I started my company out of the necessity of I just wanted to take care of my family.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go do it on somebody else's terms, because the terms that the person I was working for at the time, the thing they say about money is that it only accentuates what's in the person,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if that person's a bad person,
Right.
it's only going to blow that up.
True story. I love that.
And so that's what I saw at the previous company. There's a lot of devious things that people can do in business, and I just wanted no part of it. And so when I started my company, it's like my whole mission was I wanted to help businesses find the right solutions, not get sold the wrong solutions. My commitment was, hey, I'm going to walk away from money. I don't care what the money is. I'll walk away from it if it's not right. And I've had a number of those offers where it's like, hey, it's a quick 6 figures, in one transaction.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want that money.
Yeah. Love that.
It's not worth it. So
Love that.
where I started was, even though my parents got divorced when I was little, I was raised with that simple ethic of you work hard and you get the rewards for what you do and what you put in.
Yeah, and just speaking on that, I mean, I it's funny. I have the exact same background. I mean, my dad pretty much left when I was born, and I was raised by a single mother, and she was a nurse. Back then nurses didn't make any money, and she did it for the love of helping people. But I wouldn't change my background for the world. But I fast forward, I wrote the book called Serial Dadpreneur, and that was kind of the basis. Is like I wouldn't be who I am if I didn't have a dad. And not that I don't have a dad. I have a dad now. He's actually been a part of my kid's life. It's a lot of things have changed. So he's turning full circle. But at the time, I am who I am, and I'm as driven as I am because nobody gave me anything, and I knew that I wanted something different for my second generation. I wanted to change the stars, change those generations, just like you're talking about. Like you have that opportunity. And for anybody out there listening, there's so many people. They're like, how do I get out of this? You know what I mean? Like. We didn't come from money, but there's a way to kind of change that stars if you work harder than the rest of people in the room.
Right, and it's not always. It's not always about the money.
100%. No, success is not to do with money.
People look at people that have money or they're doing
100%.
things. They're like, well, that's easy for you to say, and it's not about that. Actually, when you start changing the mindset about the money and you start focusing on how am I going to impact people,
amen,
and how can I help people.
Absolutely. It experiences, there's a freedom there. There's an experience there. And it was, I talk about in my book about my mom, that there was times that she would give her last dollars to the homeless person down the street. And then our electricity would get shut off or something. And I'm like, I love you, Mom. And she'd be like, it's okay. No problem. Friday we'll get paid. We'll be fine. And she's just, that was her mentality through all of this. So you're absolutely right. Like, money has nothing to do with success. It is all about perception. And to me, it's about family. It's about making memories with my family and giving you a little bit more freedom to do a little bit things.
Yeah. Cause it's like, when I think about it, it's like, I didn't grow up. There were some good memories. There were some good times.
Yeah.
But not a lot.
Really?
And that's no slant towards my parents. It's no. I'm not trying to be disrespectful in that regard. They did their very best with what they thought they had.
Yeah.
And I remember one time coming home and seeing as a kid with my mom, my brother, and my sister in the car. And there's a bunch of boxes on the front porch. We lived in this trailer park, and a bunch of boxes, and it was full of food. And I didn't know it at the time. We had no food.
Interesting.
It was the first time I had name brand Fruit Loops, and I was like, man, this is amazing, right? So, but it's like, it's not that, like, for example, my children, it's not that I'm going to go spoil them with all the
100%.
name brand stuff like that. It's like, my children are learning that you work hard for what you get.
100%.
And that's how you create opportunities for yourself.
Love that. And
you open up the doors, and then you take the doors.
Yeah.
So, but it's, I was thinking back, it's like, growing up, it's like we got nothing. My brother and I, we would mow lawns, we'd collect cans, we'd spray curbs, whatever we could. Mm-hmm. That's the only way we got money.
Yeah.
If we wanted anything.
Yep. I love that, driven from the early on. And so, I mean, the point of that really is, I mean, if you come from money, but you didn't have love, you can change your stars a little bit. If you come from, love, but didn't have money, you can change your stars. I mean, money is not success, but love is definitely ultimately that's what we all want. We want to be cared and we want to give back. We want to love others and be loved as well. So, whatever you have in an early age, it's right. You can fix that.
Well, and
you get that.
And even if, even if you fall into a period of time where you're like, man, I grew up the hard times and now I'm in a hard time again. Mm-hmm. You're not locked in.
Absolutely.
There was when I came across 10X, this thing that you and I got connected to, this movement, right?
Yeah.
It means a lot to me more than just business.
100%.
Because it was a wake up for me.
Wake up!
That's right. No pun intended. No plug intended. But hey, take it. But it was a wake up for me at the time. I was looking for something to like guide.
Yeah.
Like 2014, 2015. It's like 2012, 2013. My business I should have shut it down. Mm-hmm. I was depressed. I was just like, man, this is not where I want to go. And it was the deciding moment was I started to think about it's like, man, this is it. Because my business when it took off, at the very beginning in 2005, I went all the way up to a nice 7-figure peak, and I was like, dang, I'm doing good. But then it went down, went way down, and for a number of reasons, but. At the time, I'm like, man, I don't see any way out. I got depressed. I got anxious. And somebody listening to this may find themselves at that point.
Yeah.
But it's like you gotta ask yourself how you're gonna go down.
Mm-hmm.
What's the last story when they read your at your funeral? What are they gonna say?
Right.
And you can change it.
Love that.
You can change it. And that was a deciding moment for me. And I came across Grant Cardone, 10X rule, and I started writing goals down. I'm like, man, I never thought I could dream.
Love that.
I never thought I could, I was kind of raised with that real conservative, money doesn't grow on trees,
mm-hmm.
It's not for you, type of an attitude, right?
Yeah.
Of a mentality on things. And so I always thought, man, that was just a fluke.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't replicate that. Right.
True.
And so that was a deciding moment for me for where I'm at right now is, how am I going to go down? What's the last story? And I thought about it because at the time I was not I'll tell people this very readily. It's like I was not a good, business was doing bad. I was not a good father like I should be. I wasn't a good husband like I should be. My spirituality was weak too. And so when I came across this whole thing called 10X, it's like, you got to do this in all your areas of life. It meant a lot to me. And that's what really I think it was a big contributor towards pulling me towards where I'm at. Is I'm like, I got to change this.
Good for you.
And so like that definition of like where you want to go, it's like to like sum it up. It's like what I thought of is like, I want to create the cause for the biggest party I'll never make it to.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
And so if I can go do that, and that's what I wake up and that's what my focus is every day, all the rest comes together.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I love what you said, like, the 10X movement. I talk about like positivity as a muscle as well, but I think that decision making and failures is one of those decision making that the more time you do it, it's the more times that it just becomes a natural, like, this is just a part of the journey. Like, it's just another one of those roadblocks. Some people at the first time, it's like, oh, this guy is falling. I've lost my number one employee. We're losing money right now. If I can only do this for so many more months, we're going under. Oh my God. But then after that happens so many times in your life, you're like, I've been here before. I'm going to do it again. And I think the same thing with positivity. Like my brain doesn't think negative in anything anymore because it's like I've trained myself so long that whatever hits me, I'm gonna figure it out, and that's in life. That's 10X. That's spiritual. I think that's everything. Yeah. But it's buying a house. Like my brother's buying his first house in LA right now. It's such a great story, but he's truly. It's terrifying to him, like, because he's 43, never bought a house, buying his first house. He called me every day for 30 days. Like, what do I do? I mean, I'm doing this. What do you think? Is this a red flag? Is this a red flag? After he did it, he was like, man, that was a lot easier than I thought. I'm like, exactly. And that's how life truly is until you fear the unknown. But when you pass that unknown, I can do that again. I got through that. And at this point, that's what you do. You just over and over and over and repeat and have some fun.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, you learn that in every little area of life.
Yeah.
You've been through this. It's solved. It's not the end.
Mm-hmm.
You're still, one of my goals that I was able to achieve, because I started this when I was a teenager, was getting my pilot's license. And one of my instructors, he said this beautiful thing, and I love it because it has such a great illustration. He's like, whenever you're flying, he's like, the World War II pilots, they didn't have all the fancy stuff that we got right now. He goes, but the key thing that they kept in mind was if their plane got all shot up, if they had time to wind their clock. Back in that day, the planes had the wind-up clocks on the avionics dashboard.
Yeah.
If they had time to wind their clock, they had options. So if we look at it, we all have time to wind our clock.
Love that.
And so if we can just take a moment, take a breath, wind the clock, don't hold on to the situation, but figure your way out of the situation. I mean, you find so many more opportunities, so many more doors open up.
Write that down. If you've got time to wind your clock.
Yeah.
You've got time. That's beautifully said.
Just wind the clock.
I love that.
So, a lot of times when people hit a roadblock in life, they hold on to it.
Mm-hmm.
And they spend so much time holding on to it.
Mm-hmm.
They treasure it, they polish it. I mean, they'll just go on about it for months. And think about how much time just got squandered.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, own it. Pandemic hit. I'm like, this is fantastic. Not because the pandemic's bad.
You're right.
But I'm like, this is going to create some change.
Absolutely.
It's a motivator for change.
Mm-hmm.
So you can either look at it one way or the other way. I was reading something this morning. It's like we can look at our hardships as hardships, or we can look at them as opportunities, and pull us forward.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think COVID was, it was a crazy time in America, and unfortunately, some people have lost a lot.
Yeah.
But it also it's perception. It was a huge blessing for me. I got closer to my family. I was able to dial in a lot of goals and a lot of things that I needed to do. I met Grant Cardone a little bit right before that. Like, there's just a lot of. 2020 was a special year for us for sure, and it really helped push us and elevate us. But it also took some people down that just didn't want to get back up.
Right. So, the reality is everybody can get back up. Now, sometimes, in our responsibility, I think, just as human beings, is we need to always look for how can we lift somebody back up. If we see somebody down, we can offer a hand. There's only so much you can do for some folks. Yeah. Because some folks want to stay down.
Absolutely.
And that there's unfortunately nothing you can do at that moment for that individual. But the people that want to step back up, it's like if we can offer the helping hand, that's our responsibility. It's pulling the whole crowd forward. So, when we do that, think of the fulfillment you feel from that.
Yeah.
It adds purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously 10X kind of brought us together. I saw you at the first 10X conference. Grant pulled us up there a little bit. Me and Jenny, I think that's when we met you guys. But talk about the 10X community. Like, this is a big. You are heavily into the 10X community. You're doing stuff with Brandon Dawson. You go to all the events. You might be doing a gala. You're doing a lot of different things, but heavily involved. But rightfully so. Like, you've told me several times at lunch, like, it's changed my life.
Yeah,
I'm giving back now. Like, I am who I am a lot of because of this community and who you've met, and you're very close to a lot of people out there. So, tell me about the 10X community. What has this done?
Well, the 10X community, I look at things because I'm a data guy, so I look at the community in a couple different angles. I look at this community of, you have a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs, you have a lot of established business people, and there's so much you can learn from each of these areas of people reaching out. And there's people you run into that you're like, I was there, or I'm trying to go there. And so the community itself, there's a lot of, just like any other community that's out there, there's a lot of good intention folks, and there's a lot of, counter intention folks. Yeah. And so the key thing, I think, within a community, any community that you're in, if it was, Tony Robbins' community, Jeffrey Gittemeyer, or whatever else, it's, you got to seek what that positive intention is out of those people. Mm-hmm. And not be, there was a time where I almost just kind of said, well, this is enough of this, and I'm glad I didn't. I'm like, and I just remind myself, don't be a little whiner, right?
Yeah. Or as Grant says, don't be a little bitch.
Exactly.
It is hard to say that word, I know, but anybody that's been in the 10X community, they've heard him say it 1,000 times.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. But it was one of those, it's those things. It's like when you're running through hard times. I remember I almost didn't go to GrowthCon 3. And I finally just decided I'm going to go. And that was the one at Marlin Stadium where he parachuted in. And I missed that small part where he parachuted in because my flight got in, that morning.
Okay.
But one of the first things when I walked on the floor, and I hadn't even found my seat yet, Jesse Itzler was up there, and he said something that stuck with me because I felt like I was on that. I felt like I was, running dry. And he made that statement. I think it was a quote from somebody else, but he's like, "You didn't come this far to only come this far." And that stuck with me because I'm like, dang right. I haven't come this far to only go this far. And so, within the community, you see that. You see a lot of people that are they're pushing and they're looking for something.
Yeah.
And so it's a community that's full of a lot of good intentioned folks.
Absolutely. And to your point, I mean, the first one I went to was last year when I really started understanding who this Grant Cardone guy was.
Right.
And I can't tell you, just because I was on the show, with him, I was kind of known in that function. Like a lot of people knew who I was because I just got done with Undercover Billionaire, But there was, hundreds of people that came up to me to tell me their story. And I can't tell, I think at least 5 times somebody told me they were sleeping in their car before they read the 10X rule. And instantly, like, just triggered in their brain, like the 10X rule and the Grant Cardone movement, man, like, bless his heart, he's doing something special out there. And the energy, the Itzler, I mean, just listening to his passion up on stage, I'm like in tears. Like, but the speakers that he have, like, there's so much inspiration if you can grab out of it. If you haven't gotten into the 10X community, if you haven't learned, watch Grant Cardone, man. This guy, he's a force. He is an absolute force, and he's determined to change the mentality of humans and the negativity, and to try to get rid of some of this stuff. So
and go deeper than what you first run into on YouTube, because a lot of people, it's like,
absolutely.
I hear it all the time from folks. Or I Googled him.
Yeah.
I Googled him. I'm like, yeah, and let me guess what you ran into. You ran into these videos, and it only looked like he was talking about this big stack of cash.
Yeah.
And so you're like,
absolutely,
man,
it's a great point.
About. But if you actually go deeper, and this is what I've seen personally myself, like the masterminds I've been to, the different events I've been to, those types of things, it's like there's so much more heart and soul there of why he's doing what he's doing.
Absolutely.
And so that's where it touched me, that intentionality that he has about why he's doing, the people that he's attracted, like Brandon Dawson, yourself, Gary Brecka from 10X Health now, the Eric and Gary from Incubator.
Absolutely.
I mean, just the crowd of people that are good intentioned people that are helping 100%. Businesses so much.
Absolutely. And his drive and his passion could be offensive, like you've said, like sometimes 100%. But he puts himself out there, and I respect the grind and I respect the mission. The mission is truly to make the world a better place.
Right.
And to get there, you got to ruffle feathers sometimes, man. And he is good at it, and he really enjoys that sometimes, which can probably hurt sometimes the reputation. But as you said, if you just peel that first layer, and I mean, I was truly, he told me when he left here, he was like, you are probably spent more time with me than most of my family in the 4 months that we spent. And we were together for, thousands of hours every single day, waking up together, going to like at night, figuring it all out, trying to figure this out. But it was his vulnerabilities. I saw a different side of Grant that most people didn't see. And I saw a guy that was on a mission. We butted heads through some of this mission, but God bless him for doing what he did, and the ability to push through as much as he does, while he was still running all the other businesses and his family and all of this other stuff on the side. When it was all came together on my side, I'm like, holy moly, there's a little bit more to the story than I heard. To me, sometimes I'm just frustrated at this new guy in Pueblo, Colorado, that was like, we're trying to build a business and button some heads around some certain things, but it truly, he is so determined. There's nothing that's going to stop him when he says, I'm going to get that. There's nothing that's going to stop him from getting there. And it is an impressive grind.
What I've taken away from, because I've seen that just from the outside of being someone in the community.
Yeah.
And what I love about that is it's that souled commitment.
Yeah.
Right. That like, there's no waiver. He's not at 99%. He's at 100%.
100%.
And so it's like when I think about that for like myself, it's like, I need to be so committed on that myself, like whatever I'm going towards, that I'm 100%. And if I feel like there's any bit of doubt, then that doesn't mean I'm at 100%. I'm at probably 70%.
Yeah.
And so I need to shore that one up.
Absolutely. And that's a level of commitment. Like he talks about haters and how they fire him up, and we've all been there. I mean, I was talking to you a little bit about this morning, but I was playing politics last night with the water increase and the stuff that comes out of this. But you could let that stuff tear you down, or you could smile and laugh it off and keep on keeping on. But when you get to that level, like, you know, the lawsuits that come with it, the rocks that are thrown at you, like your skin gets tougher and tougher and tougher. You know what I mean? If you want to get this prize, you got to go and do whatever it takes. There's haters are part of the journey.
Yeah. Well, and with this whole 10X community, my advice to anybody that enters that community is head towards the center. You know, I was raised a lot watching National Geographic Wild Kingdom, or Omaha, you know, Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, you know, and you always think of that crowd of wildebeest, right? Yeah, running from the lions and stuff. It's like the ones that are on the outside edge, they're the vulnerable ones. Mm-hmm. So if you don't want to be the vulnerable one, get into the center and be genuine.
Love that.
And so when you do that, it's like there's so many people that are there that are willing to share their stories, what you've been through, and you're like, man, I can let my guard down a little bit. You know, that's what I found, for example, like meeting yourself, meeting other folks, like Mike Ledoux comes to mind. He's in
great guy.
Cardone Ventureside. That guy is he's just phenomenal. So big shout out, big praise to him. Yeah. You know, other great, fantastic people like Miriam Al-Ali from Dubai. You know, it's amazing. It's just pulled people from all around the world. And what you see is people that from all around the world, they're going through the same things you are.
Absolutely.
It just looks a little different.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they can figure out that drive, like the reasons why they're doing their thing, it's like, you know, some of the stories you hear, you're like you said, you're like people living in their cars.
Yeah.
You're like, man, I didn't have it that bad. I'm doing good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so what do I got to complain about? So then it's like you shore that up and you continue on your mission, because the longer you look back, you know, you're gonna run into something. You're gonna lose direction. For sure.
Yeah. So no, you're absolutely right. And I think the 10X community definitely, there's no doubt it's a special community. You wouldn't be here right now without it. You are a superhuman. Your wife is a superhuman. We're lucky to have you guys in our lives for sure. But beyond that, I mean, the context, you said the vulnerabilities are out there. Like, all of us have challenges. I don't care where you're at in life and where you're headed in life. There's no easy roadmap to success. And if success means financial or spiritual or family or whatever it may be, to you, it's not easy. There's no easy roadmap. It is going to be this. Right. And having the right people around you at the right time is just night and day, that circle, you know. Yeah. And 10X is a circle.
There's something Grant said about like success, because you at the mastermind I went to, and I anchored on this. I really liked this. He was talking about, you know, when you start to paint out what's your ideal life, and it's like your ideal life. Like, so if you're married or whatever, it's not you the together ideal life. It's what's your ideal life. What does that look like? Mm-hmm. You know, what's that journey going to be like? That destination. And he highlighted something that was really interesting and profound to me. Was like that journey's a solo one. It always is. Mm. I don't care if you have your soulmate or not. He says it's always a solo journey. Mm. He says, but you need people on that journey. And so, you know, that's the important thing, I think, too, is where you got to cultivate the right people around you. So you may love your friends that you grew up with. You may even love your family. You know, but what you realize is, you know, you may have to distance some of that.
Absolutely.
Because that's going to interfere with the direction on what your destination is, what that ideal life is for you.
I love that. And actually, in my book, I talk about the bus, and we talk about, like, I'm the driver of the bus. You're the driver of your bus, and at some point, this bus is gonna crash, and your life is gonna end. You know, but throughout that journey, different people get on your bus, and there's a point that there's a time that you have to take some people off the bus. And you've got to put something else onto that bus, because they don't fit where you're at in life anymore like they used to. But so many of us can get caught up in having those same people on the bus, even though they're not good influencers in your life anymore. They're not helping you get forward motion or what's going on out there. But yeah, we're all in control of our own bus, and who's on that bus? That's up to us. And there's been several people in my life that, as I became a parent, that I was like, okay, I've got to get a few of these out. This isn't who I need in my life at this point in my life. But when I was partying and doing dumb things, okay, that made sense. Yeah. But we get to control that. We control who's on that bus 100%. And just like what you're saying, I love that, because we do. We control that circle.
Right. Well, and I don't think it's how you do it's important too.
Yeah.
You know, how you eliminate it. You don't have to do it rudely.
100%.
You know, sometimes I see, you know, people talk about, this, that, and the other, or my family member or my friend, and I'm like, it's just, don't hate them. You know, show them love.
Absolutely.
if you show them love, because maybe they're at a point where they don't know the path out.
Absolutely.
But if you show them some love and some humility as you're doing this, it's going to inspire them. And so if really what you're doing is a good thing, it should inspire others.
100%. Love that.
It shouldn't be a negative thing to others.
Absolutely.
So sometimes it may come across that way, but you can't control all of that.
Absolutely. Circle of control, a whole nother conversation. But yeah, I love that. And tell me a little bit about, what do you do right now? You're a data guy.
I'm a data guy. Yeah.
And listening to you yesterday and the day before, some of our team was like, this guy really kind of knows what he's talking about. It's pretty obvious that he's a data guy.
So, it's going back to that whole, journey where I started at American Business Information, and I started, the whole data thing was like really, when I was a kid, I was like, my parents did not give me a screwdriver because I took apart everything. Didn't go back to weather. I didn't put it back together. I just took it apart. I wanted to see how it worked.
That's funny.
And so that was just my approach. I was curious. I wanted to know early on, and I've been doing what I've been doing for well over 20 years. And it's the data side of things when it comes to things like business and marketing and driving. That's what fascinates me, because there's so much predictability in how humans behave. And those data points do that. And then really, too, the results that it can do for a business, it can help a business grow, succeed, and that's going to impact communities and impact people, right? If a business grows successfully and does it for the right reasons, hopefully. But, my background goes all the way to the data side of things. So First Direct, my company, I started back in 2005. My son was 3 months old at the time. It was a scary time for my wife. She just said, okay, I came home and said, I'm starting my own thing. And we were at a time where we just, my son was 3 months old. We had just exited bankruptcy. It was a hard financial time. And I'm like, I'm just tired of riding this other person's train that I can't take care of my family this way. And so, but fast forward now, we just celebrated 16 years, in business. And so what we do, we work with a lot of companies, providing them with the right information they use for their marketing. So the right information, the insights, and then the execution strategies with that information so that they can grow their business. We work with companies nationwide, worldwide, on getting the right information they use. So a company might come to us for a simple, direct mail campaign, the data they use for that. They might come to us for insights and analytics of understanding who their marketplace is or who their customers are within their marketplace. And then they can make the right decisions on the right information to help grow that. So we work with all types of companies, mom and pops, on up to, the companies that have names named at, cities named after them. So it's exciting. It's
absolutely.
It's rather fun to know what companies you're working with, because we work with a lot of agencies. We work with a lot of the companies directly themselves. So knowing how that trickles down and how you're doing those things, that's from a business side. That's where I get fulfillment from that. So
love it. Yeah, and that's a lot of things that, like what we do with Wake Up. We're a content marketing agency. We do a little SEO, but mainly we distribute content. It's everlasting stuff that, like Grant told me, one thing that always stick in my head, he's like, in the last 6 months, Matt, I've had more viewership than the last 11 years combined. It's because I'm known. And now that all of that content that I've created for the last 11 years is getting watched and watched and rewatched over again. But it took that time. It was planting seeds and putting those seeds out there that turn into little trees that turn into giant forests out there. And that's truly what our side of it is. But without your side of it, like the data side of it, is what makes that successful. You're not spinning your wheels, throwing it at people that might have zero interest.
Right.
So I love that. I mean, the more we've talked, the more we're going to definitely be able to collaborate with our customers, getting more data driven and making sure that we're spearing right into that. Even with Snooze, our franchise we're getting ready to launch, the bed in the box. There's so many different things. I'm excited to collaborate with you guys. You definitely the smartest men in the data world for sure. Our team was impressed with all your big words that you used.
I was trying to use simple words, but yeah.
No, but we appreciate it. But
it's when you can start to see, like from a business standpoint, you're sort of like, oh man, there's some opportunities here that I can really do good at taking it, not taking advantage of, but like really, I can grow business this way and make an impact.
Yeah.
And that's,
Absolutely. It's just working smarter, not harder.
Yeah, exactly.
It truly is, and that's what I think the challenge is so many people just try everything. What's the saying of, I spend, $100,000 a month on advertising and 50,000 works, 50,000 doesn't. I don't know which one does and which one doesn't, but I still keep putting 100,000 out there. And
Right.
You're like, it'd be nice to know which is actually working. So
Right.
you can actually put more money towards that side of it. And that's where data comes into play for sure.
No, and that's exactly right. We have one client where they do a massive amount of direct mail, and I told you who that was, but they do a massive amount of direct mail, and without the insight of like who it is that's actually redeeming, they don't know how to drive things forward to the next level, to expand into 100 more locations.
Yeah.
And then 100 more locations. So, with that type of information, businesses can make good decisions on where they need to go next. And it's available for small businesses. Small businesses can take advantage of this type of stuff.
Yeah, from the small to some of the largest you were telling us about that you work with. So it's awesome. It's the way of the future, and it's a lot of unknown. A lot of people don't know really that this is available to grab. So
Right.
Get a hold of this guy if you need some major data in your company and growth.
That's right.
He's kind of a big deal.
There we go.
Let's talk one more. Like probably the thing that pulls me to you and draws me to you more than probably anything else, and we have some similarities in our story in the past. We have some 10x similarities, but I would say family first. You are a man that adores your wife, and you have an amazing family, and that is my why. That is why I do what I do. It's obvious that even you tell me 16 years ago when your wife said, take that risk, go for it, in a time that a lot of people aren't supportive. And it there's a lot of people like, no, we got to figure out how to pay for this. Yeah. But to say jump, and I could sit here for the next 3 hours and talk about how amazing my wife is and how she supported me and what she enables me to continue to do. But how important is it to have the right partner in life, man?
It's critical. It's critical, and sometimes it doesn't happen automatically.
Right, it's work.
Right? Yeah, no, it is. It truly is work. And so, like with my wife and I, there was even times at the very beginning she's like, okay, all right, what else? What other option we have? I'm like, at the time when I started the company, I'm like, hey, I have enough money to cover our mortgage for 3 months. We're okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, it'll be okay. Just trust me.
Yeah.
And she
okay.
Did. And she's like, okay. So, and first month I was profitable and paid back. I had a business partner at the time, a minority interest business partner, and by the end by the second month I paid him back fully.
Mm.
So that way he was still in, but he was paid off in that respect, and
awesome.
That was exciting for me there. But it didn't always. There was time periods where she's like, "Are you sure?" Like when I talked about we had our pinnacle, and then we started going down, and things were kind of in a rough spot. She asked me, she's like, "Are you sure? Maybe you don't want to go just say you did it and be done, and maybe go try something." And at the time, she's trying to be supportive.
Yeah.
Because she could tell at the time for me it was a really difficult time. I mean, it wouldn't make you feel good to see what you've built go down.
Yeah.
And at the time, I'm like, no, this is no. If I can figure out how to pull it back out, man, I'm invincible.
Yeah.
And so she supported me on that.
Love that.
So you have to have the right partner. And so if you're but I think here's the important thing that I've learned along the way too, is like, if you don't feel your partner's on the same page with you, do it the right way, though, to get them on the same page. You got to inspire them. Mm. And there was times I did not inspire well.
Yeah.
And I have to own that one.
Very well said.
And so, but right now, we talked earlier about how committed Grant is to something. He's like, I'm going to get that.
Yeah.
Man, if you're the one that's taking the lead, you're the wife, the husband, whatever, you're one of the spouses, and you're not committed, your spouse will never be committed. Mm-hmm. They will never be inspired to see that you're committed to support you.
Very well.
And so the beautiful thing I have now is it's like my wife is my partner through and through. She knows what it's going to take us to where we're wanting to take the company, mm-hmm. and why we're doing that. The why we're doing that together too, and the why I want to do it, and then the why she wants to do it. So when we talk about why we're doing these different things, it's the personal goals we each have separately, the professional goals we each have, and the financial goals we each have, and how the business would actually fulfill those. and what our purpose or our role is in making that happen. And so that's the beautiful thing when you find that right person and have the right person supporting you. It's invaluable.
Love that. And and everything I hear right now, like what I hear out of almost all of that is communication. And truly, if there's any advice out there for partners working together or partners getting onto new entrepreneurship or whatever it is, to me the key is communication. The communication of what's going on with the kids, what's going on with this, where do we want to go? How are we going to get there together? Do you support this? Can I support you in your journeys? Can you support me in this journeys? But having those conversations, me and my wife went on a 4-mile hike on Sunday, and that was the whole hike. It was just like that. What's going on in your world? How do I help? And it's such a beautiful thing to have that open communication, because the minute you lose that, the relationship is the hardest thing, even if it's not in business. I don't care what you're in. If it's in life, if it's with you and your employees, with Ben, with everybody out there, like, you've got to communicate. Communication is key to success at anything. If people don't know where you're headed and they're not on the same page, nothing works.
And the right communication.
Absolutely.
You got to do that communication with some love.
100%.
And that's not just to your spouse, to your employee. It's like, here's the why.
Yeah.
This is the why we're doing this.
100%.
And so it's like once people can see the why, it's like, man, they can follow you into battle.
And being open-minded for constructive criticism or suggestions. One thing we always say around here is like, here's where we're going, but you got a better way to steer this a little bit. Like, if anybody else teach us on day one how to do something better than we've done for the last 25 years, we'll change. Like, if it's better, truly better than what we're doing, let's go. Like, you got to be open-minded to the other side of it too. And you got to be able to listen. Listening and communicating is key to relationships and business in my eyes.
100%.
Yeah.
All right. Right now, where we're at, where Audrey and I are at right now, it just makes business so much more fun.
Yeah.
Because I would not be able to do a lot of the things that I'm doing without her support and her help.
Absolutely.
And 100%.
Absolutely. It's beautifully said. And you have an amazing wife. She's going to be doing a podcast with my wife today. I think the 4 of us might get on podcasts. I don't know what's going on today, but this guy literally came into our community. He's got actually family in Pueblo, Colorado, which makes it even cooler, Joel. And we had some lunch and then figured this out. You were going to leave this morning, I think. And I was like, oh, we'll hang out for a little bit longer. So, I love your sense of, let's go, figure it out. Let's keep going. And there's something fun happening. Let's keep going it.
And Audrey, I give her huge props because I called her. I'm like, hey, can you get on a plane?
Yeah.
Can you be here tonight?
Love this.
I found a flight.
Yes.
She's like, okay.
I'm in.
That's it.
And then you get to drive back tomorrow or today.
There was not a long discussion on it.
I love that.
Okay, let's go.
That's when you know it's your soulmate for sure.
That's right.
I love that.
But here's the thing I'll say to that is that did take time.
For sure. The trust.
Be patient. So my advice to anybody that's doing business like with their spouse or not doing business with their spouse, they're trying to get them on the same page. Just be patient. Mm-hmm. Be loving. Be supportive back. Don't do that. Well, you just don't support me.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
I didn't do that with her.
No, absolutely.
But I mean, it's like, don't do that. It's not constructive. Mm-hmm. But Brandon Dawson said one thing. I was at a scale workshop, and he looked at me and he goes, because he pulled me up, because there's been times in business I'm like, Audrey, if you're not going to do this, I mean, just pack your box and go home, because this is not, and that's brutal. It sounds brutal. So. But Brandon Dawson, I told that at one of the scale workshops. He's like, oh, I want to hear this. Pull it up. But he told me later, he's like, your most important asset is your wife.
Absolutely.
And so even when we butt heads, and I'm sure you and Jenny butt heads too, it's like, even when we butt heads, it's like, I remember that.
100%. Yeah.
And I knew that.
100%.
So it's, be patient.
Yeah.
Be supportive. And be there. You guys are on this together. It's a journey. It's a great journey. It's a great adventure together.
Absolutely. Nothing better.
Exactly.
Nothing better. So, last question. Always, one, I truly appreciate you being here today, but tell me, what does dream big mean to you?
Well, how could you not say dream big without, adding 10X in there too? It's like,
absolutely.
Where's your aim? Where do you think your aim can be? What's the first thought that comes to mind? And then you multiply that up, right? So it's look way beyond the stars as far as where you've been told all your life that you can go, and aim for that without any fear, and start moving, and wake up every single day, and figure out the reason why you're still going that direction, and anchor onto that. So it's you can't do that. To dream big, you got to aim big, of course. Mm-hmm. And you got to keep every aspect of that life balanced in the same way. Those dreams the dream big part can't just be one part of life. It can't just be in business. It can't just be family. It can't just be friends. It can't just be spiritual. It's got to be all of them together. They all have to connect and intertwine because they're going to feed and support one another. Because if you're weak on one area, the whole thing will fall down. So to dream big, it's like aim for the big destination, but then pull all these other aspects of life together and see how the different dreams you have for those other areas of life all work together for the big one that you're looking for.
Beautifully said. I appreciate that. That is truly dreaming big from Joel Buhr. And I truly, thanks from the bottom of my heart. I think I could spend 5 more hours with you here, but thanks for coming out here. I know this isn't the last podcast we'll be doing together.
Absolutely not.
Me and my wife did it on your podcast. You're on this one. They're doing one. There's no doubt in my mind we'll be continuing this relationship and building a lot of more relationships, some business together, and helping dream big, baby.
Absolutely. I look forward to it, man.
I appreciate you being here. You have heard it from Dream Big Podcast with Joel Buhr. I'm going to just keep saying that. Buhr, right?
There you go. You got it.
Yeah, Joel Buhr.
Natural.
This guy just is truly a big dreamer. And stay tuned for the next episode of Dream Big, where we are going to travel around the world. We are going to find the world's biggest dreamers and put them here and let you hear their story. Dream big, baby. Thanks, Joel.
Woo!